say, it doesn't matter, it's just a game. Exactly. And that's why it matters. This game reminds us not all moments are equal and not all seconds the same. We don't remember every pitch, every out, or even every hit. We hope moments become our memories. That's why this game counts.
Open the day!
Because it connects us, each with our own pulse. This game makes race and rush.
That ball is gone!
From the shores of the Boundary Waters to International Falls, to the city streets of Minneapolis, and the farmland of the South, with 10,000 lakes in between.
The Twins win it!
Twins baseball instills a central ideal, reaching distant corners of even neighboring states. That's the mission.
Backhanded. Got him!
That's the meaning. That's why it matters.
This is the type of day Minnesota natives were imagining back in January and February in the dead of winter, looking ahead to baseball. Let's imagine partly cloudy skies, mid-60s temperature, green grass. Twins were hoping for a better record, of course. It's just a 1-5 mark they bring into this first game of the home schedule.
Well, like that man Torrey Hunter said right there, 156 games left. Don't judge us just on 6 ball games.
Twins are taking on the only undefeated team in baseball. The Tigers have just lost to Pittsburgh. And as Ned Yost says, we're firing on all cylinders. We're getting good pitching. We're getting good fielding. And we're hitting the ball, knocking cover off the ball. And so the Royals are at 6-0, the only undefeated team in the big leagues. The Twins will try to change that here this afternoon. And Trevor May hoping to make his 2015 debut a successful one. Twins wearing the brilliant home whites in this spectacular day. And a very special day for Paul Molitor. A rousing ovation as he was introduced for the first time here as the manager of the Minnesota Twins. And Ned Yost saw his team get to within 90 feet of a World Series victory last year. They had the tying run at third base before finally succumbing to Madison Bumgarner and the Giants.
Yeah, Ned Yost in his 6th season as a manager of the Kansas City Royals, also 6 seasons with the Milwaukee Brewers.
And they have been hitting the ball. They've been hitting it over the fence a lot more than they did at any time last year. Alcides Escobar, their leadoff man. Mike Moustakas, Lorenzo Cain, Eric Hosmer, Kendrys Morales. Alex Gordon didn't play yesterday, back in the lineup today. Alex Rios new to the Royals. Salvador Perez and Omar Infante.
And take a look at Trevor May. Trevor May, just 25 years old. This is his 10th major league start. Now he's getting this opportunity because Ricky Nolasco was put on the disabled list with a tender right elbow. This is his 2nd career start against the Kansas City Royals. He pitched against them here back in August of last year against Jason Vargas. He ended up losing to the Royals 6-4.
Week and a half ago, you wouldn't have gotten very good odds that Trevor May would be making the start here today. As you look at the Northland Ford Twins defense, Arcia Robinson, Hunter across the outfield, Plouffe, Santana, Dozier, Mauer, and Suzuki surrounding May. A week and a half ago, the way things were penciled in, Irvin Santana was going to make this start. And then, of course, he was suspended for the first half of the season. So Nolasco took his spot. Nolasco pitched in 1 ball game, went on the disabled list, so the Twins dipped down to their Rochester roster. And here he is, Trevor May, about to deliver the first pitch of the home season. And ball 1 is called to Alcides Escobar. Moustakas and Cain will follow.
It's important for May to throw strikes. What we saw last year, too many pitches in a short amount of time. Get ahead in the count with that pitch right there. Trust your fastball. He has a very tight curveball, slider, and a changeup.
1-1, of course, when May was called up last year in Oakland. He had a terrible time throwing strikes. And he misses down and in, 2-1. Things did get better for him toward the end of his 2014 season up here. And he says he learned an awful lot. Feels much more like he belongs here than he did at any time last year. Down the right field line, twisting foul, 2-2.
Well, one thing that the 9 starts, 10 appearances last year did for Trevor May, he went into the winter, and that's what you're talking about, Dick. If I can improve on this and this and this, I can pitch at the major league level. I believe he feels he can do that now. Now it's a matter of showing it.
Bouncer to short. Santana gobbles it up. Over to Mauer, one away.
And a good fastball, good location, down in the strike zone, creating that ground ball out.
May gets the first out of the inning, and now he'll face Mike Moustakas. Moustakas had a similar offseason in terms of addressing his weakness and wanting to have a better year this year. And for Moustakas, even though the Twins are shifting him, his focus hitting the ball to the opposite field. And unless or until he does that more regularly, he'll face more infield shifts like the one he's facing now. The results have been encouraging, with Moustakas hitting at .333. Foul back, 2 quick strikes.
Yeah, last year a frustration year for Moustakas. Hit only .212 in 140 ball games. Does have some power. 15 home runs last year. Already 2 in the first 6 games they played.
0-2 to the Kansas City third baseman. Got him.
There's that tight breaking ball right there. Even though that was up and away, that had some tightness to it. So May picking up a strikeout. May is a strikeout pitcher. See the straight over, it almost looked like maybe, I guess maybe that was a changeup. Something off speed away. I thought it was a tight breaking ball.
Lorenzo Cain, the third place hitter, off to a good start both at the plate and in the field. And May clips the inside corner, strike 1. Royals swept the White Sox at home, swept the Angels in California. 1-1. Second only to the Tigers coming into play today in the American League in runs scored, but 9 home runs hit. Cain has one of them. This was a team that was last in the major leagues in home runs hit last year, and yet made it all the way to the World Series. Check swing. And 2-1.
It's a team made up of a lot of individuals that have been together for about 4 or 5 years, and they've learned each other, their habits. And now with that little bit of success they had last year, a lot of success actually, they feel they can get to that World Series and win it again.
The occasion today to ride down the elevator with Eric Hosmer, and I mentioned to him, it looks like you guys just picked up right where you left off. He says, you know, we really enjoy playing together. They're really having a blast. Here's a fly ball hit to center, retreating is Shane Robinson. Trevor May with a good first inning. He sets the hot hitting Royals down 1-2-3. team can give him some early run support. The Menards batting order for the Twins for the first of 81 home games. Danny Santana leading off. Brian Dozier, Joe Mauer, Torrey Hunter, Kenny Vargas, Trevor Plouffe, Oswaldo Arcia, Kurt Suzuki, and Shane Robinson.
And the lineup facing left-handed, hard-throwing Danny Duffy here this afternoon. Someone that has had a lot of success against the Twins, especially here at Target Field. He's making his second start. First one, he gave up a 3-run home run to Tyler Flowers in the second inning in Kansas City against the White Sox. But he ended up working 5 innings. Got a no decision. Royals won that game 7-5.
Santana hitless in Detroit, got the first game in Chicago off, responded with a pair of 2-hit games. So the average at 200, and he takes strike 1. Santana, Dozier, and Mauer. That's to right field, slicing to the corner. Rios is there to make the catch. Veteran Alex Rios heading towards the line. Santana's retired. And bring up Brian Dozier. Northland Ford defense for the Royals, and there's not a better group in the American League than the guys you see out there. Gordon, a Gold Glove winner in center. Payne has already established himself as a Gold Glove candidate this year. Rios in right. Moustakas, Escobar, Infante, Hosmer, Perez, the tightest infield group that's been assembled in the American League in quite some time. Strike 1 to Dozier. As the Royals cut through the playoff field, they actually started to make some noise the year before. Very similar to the Twins team back around the turn of the century. Hunter and Mankiewicz won Gold Gloves, and that kind of set the stage for a Vinny dynasty that was to follow. And there are a lot of people in baseball who think that the Royals have positioned themselves to get back to postseason play for a number of years. This one a wallop to the corner, and Gordon won't get it. It gets by him to the wall. Dozier with a double with one out here in the first.
Well, both these starters here this afternoon try to establish that fastball, both hard throwing right-handers and left-hander here in Duffy's fastball. And he leaves it up and in on Brian Dozier. We've seen he likes that pitch right there. He can turn on that. So Dozier with his second double of the year. It's a 1-out double here at the bottom of the first.
And now Mauer. Mauer's gotten a hit in every game but one. Popped up behind third. Gordon makes a fair ball catch, out number 2.
For the Twins, in right field, number 48, Torrey Hunter.
Well, he said he didn't want to cry. Hopefully he can maybe hit a fastball here with tears in his eyes. Great ovation.
Introduced by Bob Casey. Casey, a long-time public address announcer for the Twins through the Metropolitan Stadium days and through most of the Metrodome days. Chop foul rolled off his leg up the baseline. 1-1. And I've often regretted that Bob didn't have a chance to do the PA here at this ballpark. It would have been wonderful to hear his voice. So today we actually got to hear his voice. Had to do a little editing though for that, because Bob introduced Torrey as a right fielder. He always played center field when he was with the Twins in the Metrodome days. 1-1. We'll see if there's a little magic in Torrey's bat here, trying to make it a 1-0 ball game. 1-2.
Good fastball there by Duffy at 94. Torrey 0 for 8, so this would be a good spot to get his first hit against Danny Duffy.
He's not been hitting the ball well. He's picked up a few scratch hits here or there, but the ball has not been coming off his bat very crisply. Inside, 2-2. Dozier at second with 2 away. And now 3-2. Vargas on deck.
Duffy last year a 9-game winner. He lost 12, but he had a 2.53 earned run average. Not a lot of run support.
And he takes a walk to fill first base. Vargas will come up with 2 men aboard. Vargas has yet to drive in a run this year. Two for 6 as a right-handed batter, just 1 for 11 on the other side of the plate. Couple of singles, and the Twins would love to get one here to the outfield to take the first lead of the game. Inside, ball 1.
Hard curveball missing down and in. He threw the same pitch to Torrey Hunter and missed low.
Called 1-1. Twins have hit just 1 home run this year. It was Dozier's in Chicago. Dozier with a home run now, a couple of doubles. 1-1 to Vargas. Lace to center. Kane plays it on a hop. Dozier around third. Kane's throw sailing, and Vargas delivers the first run of the game.
Vargas picking up his first RBI. A line drive up the middle with 2 outs. Dozier off with a crack of the bat. And the Twins take a 1-0 lead. This ball got to Kane in a hurry. It was on a line drive shot. And Dozier hustling from second base to throw a little bit up the third baseline. Watch Kane play that hop in front of him. Get that ball back in the infield. By the time Perez able to catch that ball up the line, Dozier slides across the plate safely.
And now Trevor Plouffe. Popped up, backing out of play. Twins haven't done much against Duffy. Plouffe just 2 hits, 16 at bats.
Duffy making his 8th career start against the Twins. 3-1, an ERA of 2.09, and even all 3 wins coming here at Target Field.
0-2 to Plouffe. Plouffe looking for his first run batted in. Half swing, and it's strike 3. To be a throw, no problem for Perez. The Twins get a couple of hits. The first run of the game. Dozier with a 1-out double, and Vargas bringing him on.
electric.
It's always nice to head north, home in front of your fans.
You know, the fans are always excited to get back to outdoor baseball and to get outdoors when the weather's turning.
When our names are actually called, they cheer.
Your fans get to see you for the first time.
Have the national anthem play at home for the first time in the season. It just, feels like pure baseball.
And a good start to the home schedule with the Twins getting a run in the bottom of the first. Trevor May delivering a pitch down and in to Eric Hosmer, ball one. Hosmer, Morales, and Gordon face May here in the second. Missing inside. 2-0.
Hosmer in his 5th season with the Royals. 2-time Gold Glove winner over at first base the last couple of years.
There's a strike over the inside corner. Bounce to the right side. Gobbled up by Mauer to the bag. One away. That will bring up Kendrys Morales. Morales signed in early June by the Twins last year. Twins were, within striking distance of first place. They were playing around 500. Terry Ryan went ahead and signed Morales, and then Morales didn't do a whole lot for the Twins. He had 234 with 1 home run and 154 at bats. The Mariners, who had employed Morales the year before and wanted to re-sign him, ended up working out a trade with the Twins. Stephen Pryor coming to the Twins, and right now Pryor is closing games at AAA for the Twins.
Yeah, Pryor, right-handed pitcher. And Morales over the winter signed a 2-year plus option year with the Royals as a free agent.
Fly to right center field and hit deep. And into the upper deck. Morales, in his first at bat against the Twins, hit as many home runs as he did for them. A long home run, his second of the year.
And his second of the year, already 10 home runs for the Royals. As you mentioned, Dick, you didn't think of the Kansas City Royals are hitting home runs.
They only hit 95 home runs during the regular year last year.
Well, they say he's healthy. He had some very good years with the Angels. And then he fractured that foot. Now they say they gave him a lot of batting practice, a lot of game time in spring training to make sure he was ready.
Because, of course, the year before, in 2014, he didn't have that. Tapper right side, charging in from short right. Dozier to Mauer, 2 away.
Yeah, he was one of these free agents that thought he would sign a big contract. Nobody really showed interest in him, and that's when the Twins signed him in June.
He turned down the qualifying offer from the Mariners and then sat on the shelf for a while and tried to do what he could, taking batting practice against, in reality, high school and college pitchers, and it's just not the same. The Twins signed him and had to carry him on the roster right away, rather than send him to the minor leagues and prep him for the big leagues. So he had, no pun intended, he had a couple strikes against him at the big league level before he ever got here.
Well, credit to Royals and Dayton Moore. They went out, not only signed Morales, they also signed this guy right here, Alex Rios. This guy has always been a very good player. 2-time All-Star, a free agent out of the Texas Rangers the last couple years, signing a 2-year deal with them.
Tight 1 and 2.
Had a lot of success here at Target Field in 36 games, a career .280 hitter.
Most of those games in the uniform of the Chicago White Sox. And May strikes out Rios, gives up a game-tying home run. As Waldo Arcia will try to regain the Twins' lead when we come back. Duffy is tough for hitters, particularly tough against left-handed batters. And he will face just 2 of them here today, at least in the starting lineup. Bauer, who retired on 1 pitch, and now Arcia.
Yeah, left-handers last year hit only 137 off of him.
Fly to left field. That's carrying fairly deep, and Gordon for the second time has to fight the sun to make the catch, and the left-handers have each swung at and put in play the ball in play on the first pitch. Both balls caught by Gordon and left.
Yeah, left-handers hit 137 last year against them. No home runs allowed to left-handed hitters, and over his career, 206 are left-handers hitting against him. 30 home runs overall, only 4 to left-handed hitters.
Here's catcher Kurt Suzuki, and then Shane Robinson.
So I'd have to say, Dick, I mean, if you're a left-handed hitter facing a guy that, 137 last year, 206 in his career, you don't want to get in that count to where he's ahead. So you're going to go up there swinging exactly what Mauer and Arcia did.
You get a first pitch fastball, grip it and rip it.
Yep.
1 strike to Suzuki. And now 2 strikes. A lot was made over the last 2 years about the influence James Shields had on the Royals, leading the starting rotation, leading the pitching staff, leading the whole 25-man roster. He was very well respected in the Kansas City clubhouse. Well, of course, Shields is gone. He signed a free agent deal with the Padres. Checked his swing. No swing. But so far, so good for the Royals, and the feeling is that Shields left his mark behind him by teaching guys like Duffy how to conduct themselves, how to prepare for a start, how to mentally focus on the game. And so even though Shields is no longer wearing a Kansas City uniform, they like to think that some of his influence is still here.
Watch out.
Foul over by the tarp. One and 2. So serving as a mentor to the likes of Duffy, Shields certainly was worth what the Royals were paying him. Now he's moved on, and the Royals similarly are trying to move on.
That's why you need a veteran presence on your staff, especially in that starting rotation, in the bullpen, and then an everyday player.
That fouled off the mask of Paul Nart, the home plate umpire. And Nart really took one off the noggin. Take a little time here. Nart getting the plate. Joe West added to this crew, but significantly, I think, even though he, well, let's take a look and listen here, right off the mask of Paul Nart.
Yeah, pushed him back a little bit. Watch this. Wow. Almost knocked him down.
West looking in, making sure Nart's okay. West was the third base umpire in yesterday's game in Cincinnati, and was added to this crew, and maybe a good thing. West, of course, the umpire, the center of controversy in Detroit after opening day. He will not have the plate in this series. He'll have third, second, and first base. In the dirt to Suzuki, 2-2. Twins got a 1-out double in the first and a 2-out single from Vargas to take the first lead of the game.
Suzuki 4 hits in 12 at-bats against Duffy.
Up high, 3-2. Duffy got ahead of Torrey Hunter, ended up losing him to a walk. Suzuki hoping to get aboard with Shane Robinson on deck. Tigers lost to Pittsburgh 5-4. Anibal Sanchez, who only gave up 4 home runs last year, gave up 3 today to the Pirates. So the Tigers have a loss. Swing and a miss. Suzuki strikes out, 2 down.
Duffy picks up his second strikeout, and the numbers that we were talking about earlier, you get to see him here. Duffy, especially, there's his career numbers. Duffy making his 8th career start against the Twins and his 10th appearance. Even better here at Target Field. 0-3-0 with a 1.35 ERA.
Shane Robinson playing his first game ever at Target Field. Whooping one foul. First time he's seen the ballpark Signed to a minor league deal during the offseason, made the roster, has never been here at Target Field before. Third straight start for Shane Robinson. Started Saturday in right field. The back starts now in center field. Twins facing another tough lefty, Chris Sale, yesterday. That put Jordan Schaefer on the bench yesterday, and Duffy's put him on the bench today. Bounce to third. Moustakas to Hosmer. The Twins go down 1-2-3 in the second. Salvador Perez leading off the third for Kansas City, and he has been a game changer for the Royals in the first 6 games of the season. He has hits in all 6 games, RBI in 5 of the 6, and he leads the team with 3 home runs.
Boy, this young man just getting better and better. Only 24 years old, from Venezuela, 2-time All-Star the last couple years. He's won also 2 Gold Gloves over the last 2 years. Becoming the best catcher, I think, in the American League for sure.
1-0 from May. And now fouled back. He may be, even more than Alex Gordon, Hosmer, Moustakas, he may be the most valuable member of this Kansas City team. Certainly the pitching staff gives him a lot of credit for how they've evolved over the last few years. 1-2. 2-2. And you can't get him out of the lineup. He set a modern day record last year, counting the postseason. He called 158 games. Up the middle, Perez doesn't run well. Dozier can't backhand it, and Santana can't forehand it. So Perez, who had either player been able to field it, might have been thrown out at first. Instead, has a leadoff single.
Well, I think it would have been a tough play for Brian Dozier, because I think what he's trying to do is set himself up and have to make a throw. The ball just scooted underneath his glove. We can see he was on the shortstop side of the bag. If he had even fielded that ball, it might have been a tough throw.
Leadoff single, and now Omar Infante. On the outside corner, strike one. May, as you have seen, low 90s, 91, 92, maybe 93. So far today, he's had pretty good location, except for the one he grooved to Morales.
Yeah, getting ahead to hitters. 6 of 9.
Right there again.
Infante, a veteran for the Royals, 14 seasons. He's played with the Tigers, the Braves, the Marlins, went back to the Tigers in his second season with the Royals. Always been a good hitter, career .276 hitter coming into this season.
High fastball got him. Number 9 batter. The third strikeout victim for May in the ballgame. Star Wars night, May 4th at Target Field. Special ticket packages available that includes a Use the Force bobblehead with a glow-in-the-dark lightsaber. Ticket packages are limited. You're only the only way to get a bobblehead is to get your tickets at twinsbaseball.com/Hughes the Fourth. Referencing Phil Hughes, of course. Here is Escobar to short center, and Santana can't get there. It's a base hit. And first and second, a couple of bleeders through the middle of the field. Perez at second now, Escobar at first.
Yeah, Escobar jumping on that first pitch, getting jammed a little bit, but able to get that ball. Saw it even at the end of the bat. He got quick hands right there. Good effort by Santana, just out of his reach. Third hit of the ball game for the Royals, second this inning.
And now Moustakas, a strikeout victim in the first. Three strikeouts from him. 3 ground ball outs and a fly ball out. Moustakas takes up high, ball 1. Dozier with a great stop, out at second to first, and Mauer can't quite hang on. It would have been a spectacular double play with Santana barehanding the flip from Dozier.
Wow. I tell you what, that was beautiful.
Now they're calling the runner at second safe, I believe. Escobar is still standing at second base. And Paul Molitor is about ready to challenge, I believe.
Well, watch Dozier right here flipping the ball out of his glove to Santana. And Santana barehanding it.
Boy.
Throw was a little bit on the infield side out of the glove of Dozier. Santana had to reach for it.
Again, you have to have convincing proof to override the call on the field, which is safe. So no one out on the play. And I don't believe the Twins are going to burn a challenge here. So they're loaded up with 1 out. Nice stop by Dozier. The flip just a little bit off target. And Santana could not have fielded the ball with the glove, it didn't appear. So he had to reach with the bare hand and pulled his foot. Make it bat now for Kane. Fly ball to center his first time up. A fly to center. Robinson retreats, should be deep enough to score Perez. The throw coming to second base, and the Royals take a 2-1 lead. There's some tough luck here for May. He hasn't given up anything hard in terms of a well-hit ball, but the Royals take the lead.
Look at that. I mean, that's how close it is. And I think we've seen in the past where if you're in that area, you're going to be out because of that runner that's sliding in hard to Santana. But definitely see the foot was off the bag. Moustakas credited with an infield base hit. And Kane picking up the RBI, his 7th of the year.
And now Hosmer with runners on the corners. Up high, ball 1. The numbers good for May. 37 pitches, 26 strikes. Perez with a seeing eye single. Escobar with a jam shot into center. Leading to at least 1 run. And now a strike 1-1. May made it until the final week of spring training in his pursuit of a starting spot for the Twins. Alex Meyer had been sent down earlier. He also was in the mix for most of the month of March. nice block by Suzuki, and Escobar took a step or two toward home plate. May, when he was sent down, said he understood. He wasn't going to worry about things out of his control. He was going to go down to Rochester and work and work and work and try to get back as quickly as possible, but he never threw a pitch for the AAA team. He finds himself pitching arguably the biggest game of his life so far, the home opener in 2015. Popped up. Plouffe comes in, and that ends the inning. A run for the Royals. They've got a 2-1 lead. Caught up.
Yeah, Kenny Vargas with an RBI single in the bottom of the first inning, scoring Brian Dozier. Took a 1-0 lead. The Twins did. But Kenny Morales with one out in the second inning. His second home run of the year. Tied it at 1 apiece. The Royals added just, we saw, a run to take a 2-1 lead.
Danny Santana will lead off the third for the Twins. Danny Duffy in his season opener against the White Sox was given 3 leads, and all 3 slipped through his fingers. Santana takes inside, ball 1. Saw the Twins get the first run of the game, and the Royals immediately answered. That's one of the reasons they're 6-0. We'll see if the Twins can follow suit here, trailing by a run. On the ground, and Escobar fires to Hosmer, 1 away. That last hop looked like it came up on Escobar, 1 down. Time for today's Coors Banquet timeless moment on this date in 1970 at Oakland's home opener against Milwaukee. The A's used gold-colored bases, and that feature would be quickly banned by the Major League Baseball Rules Committee. And that was, I believe, the very first game ever for the Milwaukee Brewers. The year before, they played in Oakland as the Seattle Pilots.
That was Charlie O'Finley. He kind of wanted the colored baseballs too at one time.
And had to settle for white spikes. Here's Dozier, double to the left field corner, his first time up. Offered at it. 2 strikes.
Yeah, he saw Moustakas at third, playing a deep third, tried to lay it down, maybe get an infield bunt single.
With a couple of first inning hits, and now Duffy's retired 5 men in a row. Crack to right. Rios going back and makes a running catch. Took a good angle and cut it off before it got to the warning track.
Oh, the veteran in right field, nice track of catching that ball. Went straight back. Nonchalantly, really, just kind of goes back, keeps an eye on it, reaches up, and makes a nice over-the-shoulder catch.
2 down, and that will bring up Bauer. We'll see if he goes after the first pitch, as both he and Arcia did their first time up against Duffy. High fastball, ball 1.
Yeah, Joe just 1 hit in 11 at-bats now against Danny Duffy.
And a strike. Outfield swung way around to the opposite field for Bauer. The hits so far this year have come up the middle and to the pole side, but against Duffy, the Royals plan to hit as he has over the years to the opposite field. Swing and a miss. 1 and 2.
I think Joe tried to pull that breaking ball right there, but you know, the scouting report on Joe, especially with, like you mentioned, Duffy on the mound throwing 94. Joe, if he gets the ball away, may hit it the other way as Gordon guards that line.
That's to left, and Gordon comes in and makes a robbing catch of Bauer again. It seemed like he did it 5 or 6 times last year. And the Gold Glove winner finishes off a 1-2-3 third inning. Presented by Century Link, your link to what's next. By NorthlandFord.com and your local Northland Ford dealer. And by Grand Casino. The best stories start here. Trevor May will face Kendry Morales, Alex Gordon, and Alex Rios. This one punched down the left field line, and a long run, and dropped down the line by Arcia. Morales will hold up with a single. Arcia had a long run, but he got there and it bounced out of his glove. It probably will be a single for Morales.
And Morales jumping on that first pitch. Arcia coming over. And it does hit the heel of his glove.
They do give Morales a hit. We know he doesn't run well, but probably should be standing at second base right now instead of first. Gordon takes ball 1. Gordon bounced to Dozier. Twins can't shift Gordon because of the runner at first. Dozier was in short right field for Gordon's at bat in the second. Check swing and 2-0.
Well, if the shadows come into play, we have seen, Arcia right there had to go a long way, but that sun is a bear right now. We saw Gordon, Gold Glove winner, struggle with that sun. See the shadows of the outfielders directly behind Arcia.
Should be 2. Dozier with a soft flip to Santana, and that cost him a double play. A backhanded flip that was 35 feet. And they get just the lead runner. Gordon reaches on a fielder's choice.
Yeah, I think if Brian had this opportunity to do it again, he would have flipped it a little bit harder or just thrown, sidearm. But the backhanded flip, you can see the air time that gets to Santana. Even though it's a good, strong throw, Gordon stays out of the double play.
1 down, 1 on, and now Alex Rios the batter. Trevor May hasn't really been helped much. He hasn't had much good fortune out there today. Morales' single certainly could have been caught. That double play should have been turned probably, and now here's Rios. See if this one is. And that takes care of it. A very quick top of the 4th inning for Trevor May. Enjoy Voyageurs National Park, an oasis of interconnected waterways and forest land, creating a paradise for boating, swimming, fishing, hiking, and more. Visit exploreminnesota.com and discover a world that's only in Minnesota. Post your experiences to hashtag only in MN. Well, Voyageurs National Park, way up there a little bit to north and east of Ash Lake, Minnesota.
Got your map out.
North of Angora, Minnesota.
Beautiful lake.
Linden Grove, Meadowbrook. Down and in. Ball 1 to Torrey Hunter. I studied my map during the offseason. You read the disclaimer during the offseason to stay sharp, and make sure that when the season starts, you're ready to go. I study my Minnesota map. 1-0 to Hunter. I do not, however, have it committed to memory.
Well, I still don't have the disclaimer.
Torrey Hunter's today's DraftKings player to watch. Play daily fantasy baseball for free on DraftKings.com, the official daily fantasy partner of Major League Baseball. Enter promo code Twin City. 2-1 now to Hunter. He drew a walk in the first inning.
And that walk ended up, Kenny Vargas ended up getting the 2-run RBI single.
Pop up short left, and Gordon coming in, has to kind of play it side saddle because of the sun. Makes the catch, 1 down. Now to take a look at our carsoup.com trivia question. We cannot prepare for these questions in the offseason. They just come at us, and it's amazing to me that we do as well as we do. Which active player has the most career hits against the Royals? Well, stand to reason it would be somebody who's played a lot in the American League Central, right?
Did he just make it out?
That's as good a guess as any, I would think. 1 strike to Kenny Vargas. Drilled an RBI single into center in the first inning. Half swing, but a strike. No appeal, and it's rung up 0-2. Miguel Cabrera's gotten a lot of. I don't know. What about Victor Martinez? Maybe somebody else in the Central Division. Martinez spending most of his career with the Cleveland Indians.
Oh, a little hurry-up delivery right there by Duffy.
1-2.
Didn't do the old high leg kick.
And a looper to right. Vargas is 2 for 2 against Duffy. You ever change your delivery much at all?
I wanted to all the time. No, I really didn't. I tried to get to the balance point. All he tried to do a Jim Cott right there when Kitty would for the pitch for the White Sox. Just hurry up and throw it. This is the old conventional wind up by Duffy. Fastball in. Vargas fought it off and hit it to right field. 3rd hit for the Twins, 2nd for Vargas.
We saw, was it Jennings of the White Sox, a left-handed reliever that changed his release point over the top and then sidearm?
No, I would do that as I got older. I changed angle, but as far as what Duffy tried to do, the quick pitch, no.
See newsreel footage of the old timers. Sometimes they would wind up twice just to give the player, the hitter, something else to look at or think about, mess up his timing a little bit. 1-0 to Plouffe. And now a strike. I was waiting for Plouffe to drive the ball. He got the double that started the 4-run inning on Saturday. Only extra base hit that he's got, has just 2 hits in 20 at bats and has 6 strikeouts. On the outside corner, 1-2.
And I think what we saw in that Chicago series, he's taking a lot of fastballs.
Taking 4 walks to go with the 6 strikeouts. Perez sets up on the outside corner. Plouffe fights it off. One and 2. And an off-speed pitch gets another strikeout of Plouffe, 2 down.
Strikeout number 3 for Duffy in a ball game. Getting Plouffe for the 2nd time. Kind of a high breaking ball, just spun in the upper strike zone. Trevor swinging through it.
Arcia with an extreme infield shift facing him. The first pitch down the left field line. Alex Gordon made a nice catch of the Arcia drive near the warning track in left center. It's a first pitch fastball and swings through. .4 and another swing and a miss.
He's throwing the ball past Arcia right now. I'd be surprised if he gets anything but another fastball.
fouled back at 95. He's gone 93, 94, 95.
And when you're out on that mound and you see somebody that's maybe got a slow bat against you, you see the high and low for Duffy so far. Why throw something off speed to speed up that bat?
There's a breaking ball, and it's dribbled up the middle. Easy play for Infante. It's Moustakas, I believe, who got the force out at second base.
Inside the Minnesota Lottery winner's circle with Katie. She's making some new friends, and here with one of her old friends here enjoying the home opener. What have you thought so far, and what did you think of Torrey Hunter's reception by the fans?
It's been great. It's a lot of fun so far today. Gorgeous day outside.
Not bad for a day in April at the ballpark, right? Oh, he's not listening.
Yes.
All right, we're having fun at Target Field. You're going to win $100 worth of scratch-offs to the Minnesota Lottery. Thank you for being our winners.
Thank you.
Taking Bert.
Yeah, congratulations. You are here by Circle. Good luck scratching off those lotto tickets. Win yourself some money.
Salvador Perez hit a 4, 5, maybe even a 6 hopper up the middle. He hit the ball about where Brian Dozier's standing right now. And the second base bag, neither Dozier nor Santana could get the ball, and Perez eventually scored the go-ahead run. Swing and a miss, 1-1. Trevor May, who looked a little overwhelmed in his 2014 debut in Oakland. Inside, 2-1.
That changeup just missing inside.
But he looks very composed out there, and that's one of the things that an impression that he left through spring training, that he just had much better presence on the mound. Bouncer to third, should be an easy play for Plouffe. One down.
A good pitch of that off-speed pitch right there. Creates a ground ball out. His 6th ground ball out so far. And the pitch count good. 49 pitches, 33 for strikes, 3 strikeouts.
One down. Here is Infante. One down swinging his first time up. Up high, ball 1. Fastball gets a swing and a miss.
He struck out Infante at his first at bat on that high fastball. Got ahead 0-2, went up the ladder with him. Suzuki wants another fastball.
Popped up, and it's over the Twins dugout out at the left. You could make the case, I suppose, for 2015 being a critical year, both for May and for Alex Meyer. They were obtained by the Twins, a team desperate for help in starting pitching 2.5 years ago. And the Twins really haven't gotten what they hoped to get. There appears to be a changeup, getting a swing and a miss and another strikeout. 2 down in the 5th. Girls on the run. Twin Cities uses running to inspire girls to be healthy and confident. Saturday, May 30th, join the Fox Sports North girls at the University of Minnesota for the Girls on the Run Spring 5K. To register, visit foxsportsnorth.com and click on upcoming events. Where the Twins were 2.5 years ago when they traded Denard Span and Ben Revere, they need those trades. They needed those trades to pay off, and here we are 2.5 years later, and it really hasn't happened yet for the Twins.
Not yet, no.
To right center field, Robinson over, and it's another quick inning for Trevor May. He trails 2-1 after 4.5.
A guy like that who has 3,000 hits, you better sit down and talk to him.
He's hoping to win his Target Field managerial debut. 2-1 ball game going to the bottom of the 5th.
Yeah, you listen to him, but then you have to go out and do it. Really, the first 6+ games offensively, the Twins have not really done much.
He's had to deal with, managers do over the course of time, but you hope you don't have to deal with what he's had to deal with so early in his initial year. Suspension of a key member of the starting rotation. The guy right behind him in the rotation on the shelf with an elbow issue. 1-0 to Kurt Suzuki. And a strike.
Well, you're going to have injuries throughout the season, but what happened with Santana is just ugly. But overall, it's just the offense has not really done much yet. Came into this game hitting only 197 as a group. Scored
Suzuki
only 13 runs.
Pops it up near the mound. And Moustakas for the first out. We'll look at the managerial list. The Twins with the fewest number of managers since Tom Kelly officially took the reins in 1987. He finished out the '86 season. And of course, Ron Gardenhire had a long and very successful run, and now Paul Molitor. I'm surprised that the Royals aren't on the list for most managers. They've had 10 managers in that time. And the Cubs had, 17? Swing and a miss by Robinson, 1 strike. Look at the Royals since that time. Billy Gardner, John Wathan, Bob Schaefer, Hal McRae, Bob Boone, Tony Muser, John Miserock, Tony Pena, Buddy Bell, Trey Hillman. Finally, Ned Yost got the Royals to the World Series for the first time since they won it all. Got them into postseason play for the first time since they won it all in '85. 2 strikes quickly to Shane Robinson. That's to center, but hit right at Lorenzo Cain. 2 down. That'll bring up Danny Santana. Today, Miguel Cabrera named the American League Player of the Week for the first week of the year. The Tigers lost 5-4 to the Pirates. So Ned Yost's team, the Royals, the only undefeated team in Major League Baseball. Santana with a fly to right and a bouncer to short. Strike 1.
Yeah, there's Ned Yost starting his 6th season as the manager of the Royals.
Winning percentage has gone up every year since he's been the manager. 2 strikes to Santana. Tend to forget that last year they only won 3 more games than they won the year before, but they got into the postseason and rode that spark all the way to Game 7 of the World Series. Duffy at the 1-2-3 fifth. A wild card winner. They clinched the wild card spot in Chicago, then had the dramatic come from behind win over Oakland to advance. Took care of the Angels, took care of the Orioles, and almost took care of the Giants.
Yeah, it almost became a Cinderella type season, and I've said it before, Dick, they got the taste of it. Now they want the ring. And it's almost the same nucleus as far as the group of guys. They've added some elements this year. They feel with good quality pitching, great defense, and timely hitting, they can get back to the big dance.
Moustakas falls behind May, 0-2. Veteran DHing from Morales, replacing Nori Aoki with Alex Rios in right. Tapper up the right side, a foul ball. You know, the perception is this is a young Royals team, when in reality they're in the older third of teams in the American League because of guys like Rios and Infante and Morales. But it's the nucleus. You saw Perez, Hosmer, the guy in the box right now, Moustakas, up and away.
Yeah, these guys, Moustakas and Hosmer, they're all between 25 and 27, 28 years old. So a lot of playing time. Moustakas only 26.
Slap foul.
A lot of times -- 1 picks don't pan out. Sometimes it takes time. Moustakas a #1 pick. Hosmer a #1 pick. Gordon a #1 pick.
The Royals were about ready to give up on Alex Gordon, and they moved him to left field. And questionably the best left fielder defensively in the game today. This one tapped up the line, foul again. Hey, I've been impressed with Trevor May. He's trailing 2-1 here, but the third inning run that the Royals got was not an inning where the Royals hit the ball hard at any point in the inning. He's mixing his pitches up, he's throwing them for strikes, and he's got a nice tempo out there.
Yeah, someone that really struggled last year by walking a lot of batters has not walked anybody, and is attacking the strike zone.
Robinson will play it on a hop. Good at bat for Moustakas, and he pokes a leadoff single.
Yeah, ball just left up, allows Moustakas to stick the barrel of the bat out and hit it in the right center field. You're right, that was a good at bat. Moustakas with his second hit. See the location, outer half of the plate, and he kind of flicked it over there.
Lorenzo Cain, he's hit the ball twice to Shane Robinson in center. Second time driving in a run from third. Over for a strike. We had shadow issues in Chicago on Friday, and they're about to really become an issue here today with the shadow about ready to swallow up the pitching mound. Fouled off a leg, 0-2. Thankfully, we don't have to wonder how we would have reacted to being as close as the Royals were last year to winning it all. Twins went to Game 7s, and of course, way back in '65, they did lose Game 7, but in '87 and '91, 2 strikes to Cain. Foul back. But it's tougher now than it was in either '87 or '91 to get back there because of the insulating layer of playoff series you have to win and survive. In the Royals' case, they had to win the 1-game wild card, then 2 playoff rounds just to get to the World Series.
Right.
Caught by Suzuki. 1-2. Getting a lot of ground ball outs. He's had 1 double play turned behind him. Could have had another one. Could have had 2 more, actually.
This guy right here, Cain, is really making himself a very steady player.
Good foul.
You know, when he came over from the Milwaukee Brewers, he's kind of a part-time player. And then last year, kind of shared time with Dyson out in center field a little bit, but now he gets all the playing time out in center field. I don't believe Dyson has been in a ball game yet.
Hey, when you're hitting over 400, driven in 7 runs in 7 games, it's hard for the backup to get in there. Dyson has not played yet. And then, too, if you're Ned Yost and you've won your first 6 ball games, you're not too apt to want to change things up too much.
Cain last year, 133 ball games he played in, hit .301.
The Royals have a 4-man bench, and 3 of the players haven't played yet. Kratz, the backup catcher, Cologne, and Dyson. 1-2. Up high, now 2-2. Kane trying to do what Moustakas did earlier this inning. Moustakas fouled off some 2-strike pitches, ended up getting on first with a base hit. Hit hard to right center field. Another great at bat. Hunter tried to decoy Moustakas, but he didn't bite. They'll hold Moustakas at third. The throw nowhere near anyone, and now everyone will try to advance, and another run scores. The throw from the outfield to an unoccupied area behind second base. And a mistake by the Twins outfield leads to another Kansas City run.
Yeah, mistake by Torrey Hunter right there. The ball hit behind him, hit right on the dirt out there. And Kane taking it the other way with some power. Over the head of Torrey Hunter. Hits the warning track right here. Bounces off the wall, and Torrey just turns and gets that ball back in, but you can see way off the mark. It's Trevor Plouffe that had to come receive that ball. It'll be a double for Kane. And an error by Torrey Hunter. No run batted in.
Infield in now for Hosmer. Something the Royals have done this year. They did it throughout the postseason. Capitalize on the other team's mistakes. We'll see where this inning leads. Mays not pitched with much good fortune here. A couple of really good at bats though to start the 6th inning. First by Moustakas and then Kane. This one blasted left center field and deep. Arcia back, and that ball is off the base of the wall. Another run will score. Hosmer with an RBI double, and it's 4-1. See May, the final pitch to Kane, missed Suzuki's target significantly, and this pitch left up, it appeared, and over the plate.
Nice. He wants it inside, left over the plate. Hosmer puts a good swing on it. Takes Arcia all the way back to the wall in the chain link fence as Arcia crashes into the fence. So 2 runs here, make it a 4-1 Royals lead. A quick trip to the mound by the pitching coach, Neil Allen.
MLB.TV Premium, the #1 live streaming sports service, is celebrating 13 years. Watch every out-of-market game live or on demand in true HD on over 400 mobile and connected devices. Real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch tracking, widget, and more. Every night on every device. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.TV for details.
See Tim Stauffer getting loose in the Twins bullpen.
A miss by Morales. Home run and a single for the former Twin against the Twins here today. Twins had a 1-0 lead, but Morales in the second at bat after the Twins took the lead clubbed one into the upper deck in right center field. To left center toward the gap. And Arcia with a sliding catch in the gap. Ball slicing towards the left fielder, and he was able to get there for the first out.
Yeah, nice catch by Arcia out in left center field. We have the angle here. You're watching that ball off the bat, and you go, oh, it's another extra base hit. But Arcia hustling over there, and after he caught it, slid. And came up and got that ball back in the infield. Nice running catch by Arcia.
Now Gordon will be walked to bring Rios to the plate.
First walk for May. It's an intentional walk. So many guys hitting in that Royals lineup. Gordon really hasn't got going yet.
Yeah.
Just 1 hit and 15 at bats.
Royals, I think, anticipated the possibility, at least, of Gordon getting off to a slow start. He had right wrist surgery. And Gordon didn't get into the game yesterday out in Anaheim.
Yeah, that was back in December.
Another yawner for Ned Yost, with the Royals getting some clutch hits. And now that'll be the end of the day for Trevor May, who seemed to be sailing through 5, but some poor location here in the 6th. A couple of runs so far have scored. 2 men aboard with 1 out, and Tim Stauffer will pitch next. With Trevor May for every weeknight. Don't miss MLB Whip Around on Fox Sports 1. Highlights, instant analysis, and live look-ins from around the league. MLB Whip Around is weeknights at 6 p.m. Central on Fox Sports 1 and streaming live on Fox Sports Go.
And it'll be right-hander Tim Stauffer coming into the ball game, making just his 2nd appearance. His only other appearance in Detroit in the 11-0 loss to the Tigers. He worked an inning and 2/3, gave up 3 runs, 2 earned runs in that outing. A couple walks, 1 intentional, no strikeouts. Making his Twins debut here in Minnesota, signing as a free agent, formerly with the San Diego Padres.
Fox Tracks presented by Chrysler. Stauffer didn't have a particularly good spring training and a rough Twins debut. Looking for a better result here with 2 men on and only 1 out. Missed the outside corner with a breaking ball.
Stauffer with a fastball. Good movement on a 2-seamer and that 4-seam fastball. Curveball. Changeup.
2-0. Stauffer's faced 10 men. 6 of them have reached. 4 with hits, 2 with walks. One of them, as you said, an intentional walk. Rios bounced into an inning-ending double play in the 4th. Stauffer will try to get him, but get him to do the same thing. But it's a 2-0 count. There's a fastball in the outside corner. Stauffer was initially in spring training considered to be a long shot candidate to fit into the starting rotation, but that very quickly was dismissed. He was moved to the bullpen. Poked to center, and Robinson with the catch. That's out number 2. And Hosmer does not try to advance. I'm surprised about that, with Robinson shifting over to the gap, having to pivot to make his throw to the infield.
Well, I was watching Hosmer. He went about maybe a third of the way, and then when that ball was coming down toward Robertson, he hustled back to second and decided not to tag up.
Perez, the batter, a single and a run scored, and a bouncer to third. Royals saw the Twins score the first run of the game. Quickly tied the game in the 2nd, took the lead in the 3rd. They've added 2 so far here in the 6th. Tried to get that outside corner again with a breaking ball and just missed.
Pretty close pitch right there. Stauffer did some starting at the major league level. 73 starts for the Padres, 183 total games.
There's a strike in the outside corner. Oh, inside. And how did it miss him? 2-1.
Yeah, it looked like a changeup right there that just kind of ran in on Perez. Clocked here at 77 miles an hour.
And now 3-1. Number 9 batter Omar Infante on deck. Trying to clean up a bit of a mess here. The Royals have already opened up a 4-1 lead. To left field, and Arcia plays it on a hop, and it'll be a 5-1 lead. Hosmer around third, he'll score. And Perez gets an RBI single.
Yeah, got the count in his favor. Got a breaking ball or something out. And it wasn't low enough. Perez got the barrel of the bat out, pitch by pitch. Stauffer just misses with that breaking ball down and away. And that's called a strike, that two-seamer. Then the changeup up and in. Now it's a 3-1 count, and here's the pitch. You can see it just about thigh high. And Perez getting the barrel of the bat out, picks up an RBI, his second hit, driving in his 9th run of the year.
It's a lot of runs in just 7 games. Down and away, ball 1. A 3-run 6th for the Royals, and all these runs will be earned runs against Trevor May, and he's still responsible for Gordon at second. Bouncer to short, should end matters. Santana to Dozier, that takes care of it. But the Royals start the inning with 3 hits, and all 3 runners come around to score. Pepsi fans of the game enjoying the sunshine.
How many home openers did you go to, Dick?
Before I started working?
No, I'd say before you started working. Did you get a chance as a kid to go in?
No, I never did. No, professionally, I think I've been to 34, something like that. But you know, before then, it was growing up in first of all, Western Minnesota, and then 5 years down in Missouri. We'll get to one Twins game a year, and it was usually, in the summertime. You probably sneaked your way into the ballpark.
Well, I think opening day we actually had to buy a ticket. But, when the Angels were there, so they started in '66 in Anaheim.
Right.
Always tried to get out to that home opener.
2 strikes to Dozier. Danny Duffy now pitching with a 4-run lead. Twins need to get something done here. Jump back into the ball game. Dozier with a double and a run scored.
The Twins did score one run in the first inning on a couple hits. Since then, they only have one more hit, and that's Vargas in the 4th inning.
This is the time, although it didn't seem to bother the Royals at all, this is the time when Roy Smalley says it's really the toughest for a hitter. Pitcher's in the shadows, and the batter's eye is in the bright sunshine. 2-2 to Dozier. Mauer and Hunter will follow.
We see the brightness of the batter's eye, and Duffy standing in the shadows.
That's hit to the gap in left center. Dozier has another extra base hit. And it's a leadoff double for the Twins here in the 6th. Fell behind 0-2, worked the count even, and stands at second with his 3rd double of the season, 2nd today.
Yeah, Duffy left the breaking ball up that just kind of hung there, and Dozier got the barrel of the bat out. Quick hands right there by Bryant. Splits that gap in left center. So a leadoff double, see if the Twins can do something with it.
Mauer's hit the ball twice to Alex Gordon. Gordon took a hit away and a sinking line drive in the 3rd. There is a huge gap in right center field. The right fielder Rios is playing pretty standard positioning in right, but look how much room Mauer would have if he were to hit it over the second base umpire.
Well, until Joe starts to be able to do that, there will be gaps out there.
I've seen right fielders try to shorten that gap a little bit, give up the line. 1-0 to Mauer, and now a strike. Again, the hits have come up the middle into the pull side. Joe's gotten a base hit to the opposite field yet. He's trying to get a board here. Twins need to string some things together against Duffy in the 6th. To right and down for a hit. He pulls it right in front of Rios. And so the Twins get an encouraging start here with a double and a single. And now Torrey Hunter.
A good at bat by Joe. He fought off a fastball. Looked like it was up. And he hooks that ball into right field for his first hit. Location, let's take a look right there. Yeah, just stayed up, let her high to Joe.
Well, see,
Joe
that's
turning on.
And that's a fastball up and in, and I've not seen Joe do that in quite some time. He has worked so hard to be able to pull the ball, and he pulled a 90+ mile-per-hour fastball up and in into right field. Now Hunter. Twins need a jolt here. We'll see if Hunter can provide it. Swing and a foul. Torrey just hasn't made solid contact yet this year. Drew a walk in the 1st. Did a short fly in front of Gordon. Caught by Gordon in the 4th. Straight back. 0-2.
You know, and when you're struggling a little bit, not making good contact, where do you find yourself? 0-2. 75 pitches for Duffy, 54 for strikes.
Fastball up and away. One run batted in on the season. Hunter would love to get another 1 or 2 or 3 here in this at bat. fouled back into the seats. One of the reasons Torrey said this would be an emotional day for him was his group a dozen or so years ago that really, case can be made, was responsible for this ballpark being built. Deep to right field. Retreating is Rios. And he makes a reaching grab on the warning track. A deep fly ball that will get Dozier in from third. And again, Rios just gliding back, making the catch. It's 5-2.
Well, Torrey hits this ball the other way, picks up an RBI, his second of the season. As Dozier scores this for the second time.
Vargas with a sharp single to center and a looping single to right, 2 for 2 against Duffy. Vargas now hitting .500 as a right-handed batter. He's 4 for 8. All the hits have been singles. Missing ball 1.
Vargas only 1 double on the season. This is a guy that the Twins hope will hit more doubles and home runs.
He's hit a lot better from the other side of the plate than this side last year. And now 2-0. Another base runner gets the tying run to the plate. Year. With the success this year, the right-handed batting average just up to .235. He takes a strike. Blue on deck. Two pitches for Duffy. No activity in their bullpen. The Twins hoping to continue to string some things together here.
Should get a pitch to his liking right here. Perez sitting away.
Ball back 3-2.
Perez sat away and the ball came up and in.
And Madsen is up and warming.
It's a bullpen has been outstanding. 16 1/3 innings of scoreless ball so far out of their bullpen.
Full count to Vargas. Double play grounder. And Escobar goes to the bag, fires to Hosmer, and a big at bat for Danny Duffy. The Twins get a couple of hits and 1 back in the 6th. Twins striking first.
Yeah, Vargas's base hit scores Brian Dozier. Twins take a 1-0 lead to the top of the second inning. But the Royals come back. Morales, a solo home run in the second deck, tied it at 1 apiece. Kane in the third inning, scoring a run, and then the 3-run 6th inning for the Royals, highlighted by some doubles, 4 hits, and Perez knocking in a run.
Alcides Escobar leading things off for the Royals, taking strike 1 from Tim Stauffer. A chance for Stauffer to pile up maybe another inning or 2. These are, and forgive me for saying this, but these are the bullpen innings once you get into the 7th. Casey Fiend had a bullpen session today, and his shoulder felt much better. But with the off day tomorrow, certainly hit one hop pickup by Santana over to Mauer, 1 away. An off day for the Twins tomorrow. They had their druthers. I think they'd prefer to give Casey the day off today. So if Stauffer can pitch effectively, maybe an opportunity to give Casey 2 days off. He'd be ready to go Wednesday.
Yeah, Casey Fiend's going to be so important throughout the summer that you don't want to push the issue right now. I talked to him a couple days ago. He still, felt it a little bit in Chicago. Said on the plane coming here that, last night that he felt a lot better, that he'd be ready today. But with the off day, like you mentioned, Dick, might take the chance.
Moustakas takes strike 1. Twins have some, I don't know if they've got bullpen issues. Relievers haven't pitched well, we'll put it that way, and they need to pitch a lot better for this team to be competitive. Blaine Boyer had such a great spring training and had just a terrible time in Chicago. Stauffer didn't have a good spring training and has had a tough time before today getting guys out. There's a strike called, 1-2.
32 major league wins for Stauffer, 34 losses, an earned run average at 3.87 between starting and relieving with the Padres.
Tapper right to the only infielder on that side. Santana throws to Mauer, 2 down. Sanford health injury report. Bad news yesterday, an injury to Yan Gomes on Saturday put him on the disabled list. They say he'll miss 6 to 8 weeks. Many of you, I'm sure, saw the play. There was nothing dirty about it. It was a throw to the plate, a forced play. And the runner, Rajay Davis, did what runners are taught to do, to try to take the foot off the base, slide into the catcher to eliminate any chance of another out being recorded on the play. But somehow Gomes got his knee twisted. And as Terry Francona said, it was a baseball play. His catcher, though, was going to miss about 2 months worth of games. Fouled over the Twins dugout, 1-1. A 5-2 ball game. Twins had a chance for a bigger inning in the 6th. The Royals took advantage of their chance, scoring 3 times, and now 2-1. Speed pitch lifted foul and out of play. A lot of eyes were on the Royals to see how they would start this season. A team that offensively really didn't do much until the postseason last year. Their clutch hitting was so good through October. Santana with another chance. 3 ground ball outs and a real good inning for Tim Stauffer. Twins find themselves down 5-2, and we'll see if the Royals bring their bullpen into play here to try to protect a 3-run lead, try to make it a 7-0 start to the season. Since it's the home opener, we're happy to hold you here at Target Field and bring you God Bless America.
From Air Force Base, Scott, as he's going to lead us in the singing of God Bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
See where Toyota takes you. Test drive one at your local Toyota dealer. Toyota, let's go places. And by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, for the everyday competitor in all of us. Not an enviable spot for the Twins. Danny Duffy's pitched well. Just a couple of runs allowed through 6. The Kansas City bullpen awaits. And Duffy delivers to Plouffe, who tries to bunt and fouls it back.
I'll tell you what, that's good effort right there by Plouffe, because Moustakas was playing back. Twins need base runners. He's been struggling at the plate, and he tried to get on base.
So far, Duffy's set the last 4 batters down successfully. 0 for 8 for Plouffe, Arcia, Suzuki, and Robinson. Inside, 1-1. Twins started the 6th inning with a pair of hits. Got a sacrifice fly from Hunter. They really needed something good to happen in the Vargas at bat, and it decidedly did not. Ground ball double play. That's hit to left. It's high. It's deep. It's gone. A home run for Plouffe.
All right, finally squared one up. Hopefully that'll get Trevor Plouffe going.
It's the 2nd home run of the year for the Twins. Both have come with the bases empty. He bunted unsuccessfully and then clobbered one about 400 feet.
Yep, take a look at the pitch. Kind of right down the middle of the plate, and Duffy kind of threw up his hands. He knew it as soon as Trevor Plouffe made contact. 5-3 ball game. Plouffe with his first.
And now Arcia. Arcia takes up high. In spring training, we were told guys like Arcia in situations like this would bunt during the season. Rather than doing that, hard ground ball, Infante throws him out. 1 down. And we'll bring up Suzuki. You can pick up your glove and check out the new for 2015 Weekend Warrior ticket package. Get all Friday, all Saturday, or all Sunday home games. Become a Twins season ticket holder today. Get your ticket to summer. Call 800-33-TWINS or visit twinsbaseball.com/weekendwarrior for more info or to place a deposit. Duffy will leave with a 2-run lead, going 6 1/3 innings, and now the vaunted Kansas City bullpen. Madsen will be able to protect the 2-run lead.
Yeah, Madsen making his second relief appearance, a guy that was kind of giving up on baseball in the 2014 season last year. Signed by the Royals as a minor league free agent, went to spring training, made the club. Guy that has a lot of major league experience, but has had a lot of elbow, shoulder issues, had the Tommy John surgery back in 2012.
Didn't play professionally last year at all. Suzuki will lead things off. His second appearance of the season. And Suzuki takes a strike on the outside corner.
Yeah, they say that Madsen was home with his family and children, and he just had that urge to want to continue again. And decided to try it again. He was with the Angels in 2013. They ended up letting him go in early August.
Swing and a miss, 0-2. Suzuki 0 for 2, went down swinging in the second, popped up in the fifth.
Madsen came up with the Philadelphia Phillies. Was with them from 2003 to 2011, and then the arm issues continued.
And a breaking ball, Suzuki waves at it, 2 down.
This copyrighted telecast presented by the authority of the Minnesota Twins and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Minnesota Twins, LLC.
Wade Davis has already pitched in 4 games for the Royals. Herrera and Holland have each pitched in 3. Doesn't mean we won't see any of those guys, but Madsen doing the job of trying to finish up the 7th inning here. Here's Shane Robinson. Pop up back and out of play. Robinson 1 hit in 9 at bats and 3 strikeouts. Just the first 7 games of the season, but you can imagine Paul Molitor continuing to try to use his bench players like he's used Robinson, giving him 3 starts in a row, giving him a fair chance to have some good at bats, rather than just once a week, and the guy's in perhaps against the toughest pitchers in the game.
That's it. You know, Chris Sale yesterday, and then Duffy's no easy guy to face.
But if you got 3 starts in a row, at least you can get a little flow going, hoping to put together some good at bats. Ron Gardenhire did the same thing. 1-2. And Manson comes out of the pen and strikes out Suzuki and Robinson. Loose home run makes it a 2-run game as we head to the 8th.
A big doubleheader of action for you. It starts at Target Field, 6:30 p.m. on Fox Sports North. The Twins once again host the Kansas City Royals over on Fox Sports North Plus, and right next door, the Timberwolves host Oklahoma City. Now back to Dick and Bert at the ballpark.
All right, thank you very much, Tim Stauffer, with a good outing so far, ending in 2/3, 1 hit. Face Eric Hosmer, Kendrys Morales, and Alex Gordon. Hosmer with an RBI double and a run scored his last time up. 0-1. Stauffer, in essence, in the role that Anthony Swarzak held so well for the Twins. Here's Hosmer slapping one to left field, a base hit to lead off the 8th. We'll see Swarzak this weekend when the Cleveland Indians come to town.
Right. Hosmer picking up his 2nd hit of the ball game, and for the Royals, their 10th of the ball game. Trevor May worked the first 5 1/3 innings. Take a look at the pitch that Hosmer got in and out. Brian Dunsing warming up. 8 hits, 5 runs, 5 earned for Trevor May.
Now Morales. Outside, ball 1. Morales, after being traded to the Mariners, really didn't do much for them.
59 games for the Mariners, hit only 207. Did hit 7 home runs. Career .271 hitter.
Now 3-0.
What he gives them, what they had forever, was Billy Butler being their designated hitter. Now Billy Butler signing with the Oakland A's. They have a switch hitter with power from both sides of the plate. Billy Butler was a great hitter, but I don't think he generated the power as a designated hitter.
Stauffer had a good outing going here, but now a single and a walk to start the 8th. We'll bring up Alex Gordon. Limited number of season tickets now available in the Delta Sky 360 Legends Club. Experience all 81 games in the always comfortable Legends Club. Enjoy padded seats, unique food items, in-seat service, and everything that makes the Delta Sky 360 Legends Club the perfect combination of luxury and baseball. You can learn more at 800-33-TWINS or go to twinsbaseball.com. Molitor to the mound with the left-hand hitting Gordon due up. He'll bring his college buddy and teammate Brian Dunsing to face him here in the 8th.
One of those guys who he's scrappy.
You know, as soon as you got him 2 strikes or you think you got an edge, he makes an adjustment.
Unbelievable left fielder.
Maybe the best left fielder in the league right now.
I feel like they have really good chemistry over there, and I think he's part of that guy leading the way.
That guy, he plays hard, and he's another fun one to watch.
And Gordon will hit against his college teammate. Best friend. We've documented the relationship between Gordon and Dunsing quite a bit over the years.
Yeah, both of them out of the University of Nebraska. And Dunsing making his 4th appearance. He worked in yesterday's ball game 2/3 of an inning, had a strikeout.
Tap foul. You look at Gordon's numbers from a year ago. He hit 266, led the team in home runs and runs batted in with very modest numbers. 19 home runs, 74 runs batted in. Brian Dunsing led the Twins in home runs with 23 and runs batted in with the 71. Trevor Plouffe, I guess, led the team in runs batted in. But those are pretty modest numbers for a team leader in those 2 power departments. But in its own way, Gordon hit by the pitch, and now they're loaded up. In its own way, it underscores why the Royals got into postseason play and had their excellent postseason run in the first place. Pitching and defense.
When you get that deep, it usually comes down to no matter what sport you play, you have to have good defense. And Dunsing going inside and getting the right thigh area. So hit batsman by Dunsing, loads the bases with nobody out.
Rios the batter, and Paul Molitor is going to make a pitching change here. Dunsing upset that he hit Gordon. And that's the end of his day, with the Twins trying to keep this a 2-run game. The Royals threatening to break it open again. Bases loaded, nobody out. side pickup, J.R. Graham. We've commented about his stirrup socks and wearing his pants up high. There's a very good reason for that. His mother for years has been beset by an eye disease called Best disease. It's a progressive thing that has left her virtually sightless. She can make out images, but she can't see well at all, can't drive a vehicle or anything like that. Going back to high school, Graham has always worn his stirrup socks and his pants rolled up so his mother can see him, an image of him on the field. She and his father are here today to watch him pitch his Target Field debut, and he comes in a very ticklish situation here. Bases loaded and nobody out.
Yeah, making his 4th major league relief appearance, and not the situation you want to come in to. Twins bring the infield in. It's Alex Rios.
Oh, up and in, and Rios is hit. And Rios glares out at the field. Thankfully, it got him in the wrist. And remember when Graham made his major league debut, and Rios still a little upset about that pitch. When Graham made his major league debut in Detroit, his first pitch was in a similar spot.
See where it gets Rios?
Back of the hand.
Left hand.
See where the target was, and it was nowhere near.
That's just a young kid trying to overthrow.
And so Hosmer scores. Back-to-back hit batters. Royals and the White Sox had a little situation develop in their series last week.
The Royals had something in Anaheim too.
Yeah.
Between Ventura, the pitcher, and also Mike Trout.
Still don't understand that, but infield in again, and it's already 6-3.
Credit Rios with a run batted in.
Breaking ball, swing and a miss. Mike Moustakas has already been hit 4 times this year. Gordon's been hit 4 times. Breaking ball off the plate, 1-1. Twins kind of did this to Graham during spring training to see how he would handle situations with men on base, and he handled it all pretty well. Now, this is not a very good way to start, hitting a batter with the first pitch.
What you have sometimes in spring training, even though he does come into the ball game late, you've got a lot of 95s and 78s in that lineup. Now, you don't have the high numbers anymore. Now you have number 13.
Guy with 4,000 or 5,000 major league at bats. 1-2 to Salvador Perez. Santana bobbles it. And the Twins defense continues to be a big issue. First in the outfield, and that ball.
Yeah, Graham he got the ground ball right there. Santana, I think, tried to backhand it and throw all at the same time to try to get the runner at home, that being Morales. So you get the ground ball right to your shortstop. The ball kind of bobbled right there, and Morales does score. He wants to set up and throw already, but the ball in and out of his glove. So an error will be charged to Santana, his first of the year.
Up and in, ball 1. Tim Stauffer, who had a good inning and 2/3 going, gave up a hit and a walk. Both those batters have come around to score. Second Twins error. First charge to Hunter in right field on an errant throw. 1-1.
Good quick slider there by Graham.
Royals have committed just 1 error so far this year, and that was by Kane, who may by season's end win a Gold Glove. 1-2.
Another good slider, good location. to it again and picks up a strikeout. So Infante strikes out for the 3rd time in the ball game. Big strikeout for Graham.
And now Escobar. Twins infield will back up a little bit to a more standard double play depth, trying to keep the damage to a minimum here. To the gap in right center field. It may clear the bases. Hunter cuts it off. 2 runs will score. And it's a 4-run inning.
Escobar jumping on that first fastball and picks up a couple RBIs now with 5 on the year. His 2nd hit.
Now Moustakas will hit. First 4 batters who came to the plate here in this 8th inning have come around to score.
You see the high fastball, Escobar taking it the other way, landing in front of Torrey Hunter. Gordon and Rios scoring, both guys that were hit by pitches.
Moustakas takes up and away ball 1. And Suzuki to the mound. And earlier today, the Tigers lost their first ball game. It was 5-1 going to the 9th. And the Tigers put 3 up on the board, but came up a run short. So the Royals have a chance here to go 7-0 on the year. Up and away, 2-0. Moustakas with a couple of hits. Royals jumping back into a regular season after an impressive postseason. And as Ned Yost said after their 2nd straight sweep against the Angels, they're firing on all cylinders. So to beat a team like that, you need to play well in all areas, and the Twins have not done that again today. Two and one. And that gets by Suzuki, and 2 more runners will move up a base.
I don't know if this ball hit home plate, but it scooted underneath Suzuki. Should be a wild pitch charge to Graham. And they're going to give a pass ball to Suzuki.
Yeah.
He tried to backhand it. The ball hit off his glove and got behind him.
Field has to come in now. Twins already down by 6. And there's a walk to fill the bases. 9th man to bat is Lorenzo Cain. Some news and notes from around baseball. Michael Kadire with a couple of hits.
He was struggling a little bit early with the Mets.
Garrett Cole outpitched Anibal Sanchez. Sanchez giving up 3 home runs today. He only gave up 4 all last year. And Mookie Betts with a big day for the Red Sox. Down and away, ball 1. Cain with a run batted in, a run scored, a hit. Kind of a curious batting order for the Royals, and obviously it's been working. But you've got Escobar, who's not your typical leadoff hitter, but he's leading off, and he's done a nice job. I don't know that anyone envisioned Moustakas filling the 2 hole in a major league lineup, but there he is. Cain 3rd. Gordon dropping down to 6. Remember, part of last year, Gordon was a leadoff batter for the Royals.
You know what Escobar can do? He can steal some bases in the top of the lineup. This guy right here is a good hitter. He is really making himself a good hitter, and that's Cain.
And Graham having a tough time throwing strikes now. No place to put him, and it's 3-0. Trevor May took the game into the 6th inning, got 1 out in the 6th, and now the Twins are having a tough time getting the final outs of the game. Down the middle of strike 3 and 1.
Well, the bullpen struggling, yes, throughout the season, but I'm going to go back to what I was, and that's a starting pitcher. You have to go out there and put some zeros on the board. May ran out of gas in the 6th inning.
3-2.
And that puts more pressure on those arms out in the bullpen. We saw it for the last 4 years.
Twins have had 2 quality starts. Tommy Malone's in a victory Friday in Chicago, and then Phil Hughes yesterday gave up some early runs but fought through 6 innings. Technically a quality start. Foul back. Time call. And fouled at the plate. Trying to avoid a bases loaded walk here.
Jonathan Ryan, Graham.
And Kane.
He's going right after Kane with fastballs. That might have been ball 4, but again, Kane, very aggressive hitter. A souvenir.
Another 3-2. And he walked him, and a run will come in. The 5th run of this awful inning.
Kane getting an RBI with the bases loaded walk, his 2nd RBI of the game. Everybody moving up 90 feet.
Still only 1 out in the inning. We've had errors, we've had walks, we've had hit batters, and our 4th pitcher of the inning. Boys and Girls Clubs of America. Boys and Girls Clubs help young people reach their full potential as productive, caring, and responsible citizens through programs that promote character and leadership, education, healthy lifestyles, and more. For more information, visit foxsportsports.com. Aaron Thompson comes in, trying to put an end to an ugly 8th inning.
Yeah, Aaron Thompson Saturday in Chicago, an inning and a 3rd. Yesterday, an inning and a 3rd. Both of them shutout appearances. Making his 4th appearance overall.
High, ball 1. Hosmer started this inning with a single. To center. Robinson with the catch. Tag from third. Another runner coming in. Escobar. A sacrifice fly adds another run to the Kansas City total. And Hosmer's driven in his 2nd run of the ball game. That'll bring up Morales.
Morales now hitting as a right-handed hitter.
Foxtrot's presented by Carrier.
7 hits and 17 at bats as a right-handed hitter for Morales.
And Thompson with a nice fielding play, putting an end to a miserable inning for the Twins. The Royals score 6 times and now lead by 8.
Twins will try to give their home fans some more to cheer about here as we head to the bottom of the 8th. I'm Jamie Hirsch, reminding you to stay with us after the final out of the game for Twins Live, presented by CenturyLink. We will break down today's starters. A duel for a while, and Danny Duffy ultimately out-dueling Trevor May. We'll also look at some key contributors for the Minnesota Twins, Brian Dozier and Kenny Vargas with a pair of hits, and we will hear from the manager, Paul Molitor, all after the game on Twins Live, guys.
All right, thank you, Jamie. 1-0 to Danny Santana, and now 2-0. Manson came in after the Twins had drawn to within 2. He struck out Suzuki and Robbins, and now the game's blown open, but he still, if he were to complete the game, would have a save that he could pick up. Two and 1 to Santana. Hitless today, committing an error in that messy 8th inning.
Yeah, that was a big error right there because you got to force out at home.
Dyson in for the first time this year.
Taking over for Rios.
Well, back and
might be getting some ice.
I was going to say we don't need to. We don't want to discount the fact that Rios could have gotten hurt on that hit by pitch, getting hit in the back of the hand. And we hope that's not the case. 2-2 to Santana. And to right field, a base hit. Santana with a single to lead off the 8th inning.
Kind of change up, left up a little bit by Matson. Santana picks up his first hit.
Dozier will hit. He's got a pair of doubles and a pair of runs scored. Strike on the outside corner. Down and away. Madsen, as you said, no rookie here. He's pitched a lot of innings with a pretty good relief pitcher for the Phillies for a lot of years. And taken for a strike, 1 and 2.
A good changeup right there. You know, credit somebody like Matson that kind of walked away from the game but still had that something inside of him to give it one more chance. And it worked. You know, Luke Hochevar, he's kind of in a role that maybe Matson is in now, but he's still recovering from the Tommy John. He's down in the minor leagues and trying to get him to where he's working back-to-back days. Hochevar a couple years ago was awesome out of their bullpen.
And another veteran, Chris Young, who was a pretty important pitcher for the Mariners last year, and he's just kind of a, say spare part, but a fill-in guy. If they wouldn't had an opening in the rotation, Young would probably slide in there, but again, a guy with a lot of experience. 1 and 2 to Dozier. High and tight, 2 and 2. Young, the comeback player of the year last year in the American League. 12 games for the Mariners. Swing and a miss. Dozier's gone on strikes, 1 away.
That fastball right there at 92 miles an hour. And Matson picks up his 3rd strikeout.
And Joe Mauer will hit.
17 1/3 innings of shutout bullpen so far. They have now 20 strikeouts out of that bullpen in 17 1/3.
You know, the Royals could not do in a regular season what they did in the postseason last year. They and the Giants, with the exception of Madison Bumgarner, got to, and in the Giants' case, they won the World Series with terribly short starting pitching. It wasn't very good at all. Peavy, Shields, whoever was thrown out there didn't emerge as a, you know, dominant factor in any of the World Series games of the postseason, with the exception of Bumgarner, of course. But you couldn't play a regular season that way like the Royals did, relying on your bullpen to pitch half or more of the game. So the Royals will need the Duffys and Venturas and Guthries and guys like that to
go deeper into the ball game.
Carry their weight, exactly. A little foul off the bat of Mauer, 1 and 2. Dave Island, the pitching coach, has the luxury of having 3 shutdown relievers in succession. Herrera, Davis, Holland, all of them from the right side. And Mauer fouls it to the screen.
You know, I was talking to Ryan Lefevre and Rex Hudler, their TV guys, and they credit Jason Frazier, the one that's really pitched well so far out of that bullpen, even though you have the other guys.
And there's another guy who's a veteran. He's been around a long time. There's Rex Hudler on the left, Ryan Lefevre on the right. 1 and 2 to Mauer. And another foul.
So, you know what? I guess Dayton Moore did. He brought in not the young kids, he brought in some veterans that have been through the battles. Picked up Jason Frazier a couple years ago, and he's done a great job for them. There's Jason Frazier.
Bauer having a one-out battle here in the 8th inning with Madsen. Back to the mound. And a 1-6-3 double play ends the 8th. The battle won by Madsen. And the Royals lead by 8. Beautiful day here, but unfortunately the Twins have not played well again here today and now trail 11-3. Road part of the schedule didn't get off to a real good start. Just one win on the road trip. The Twins will have tomorrow to try to recover and come back and start playing better baseball on Wednesday.
Well, Glenn Perkins will get the top of the 9th inning. He just needs to get out and get some mound time. Only his second appearance. He last worked on Thursday in Detroit. That 7-1 ball game. One shutout inning. Had a couple strikeouts.
Alex Gordon, the batter. One strike. If there was one seminal moment during the regular season last year that might have given an inkling or a clue that the Royals were on their way to something special, it was Gordon's walk-off home run against Perkins in Kansas City in August. Every championship team has moments like that. Dramatic, getting a win when it looks like you're going to lose type of moment, and that was probably it for the Royals last year. One down. And here is Dyson, first plate appearance of the year. We hope it's the score that has gotten Dyson into the ball game and not something serious that might have happened to Alex Rios.
Yeah, you know what? The Royals still, they won 89 ball games last year, just one game behind the Tigers.
You know, it was such an interesting race in the dual wild card scenario. It was a big part of that. You get teams that just barely got in, like the Royals and the A's, and one game, you know, decides who advances. And the Mariners had a good year, but kind of faded toward the end, and they didn't get in at all. And we're told now it is a bruised wrist for Alex Rios. Chip to center and down for a hit. Dyson's aboard. And that'll bring up Salvador Perez. Time now for What's Next, brought to you by CenturyLink. Built-in off day tomorrow, because in baseball they do that after opening day to allow the game to be played the next day in the event there's a weather issue. Kyle Gibson will go against another veteran, Edison Volquez.
Yeah, Volquez in his first season. with the Royals.
Here is Perez. A couple of runs scored. An RBI, reached on an error his last time up. Hit the ball on the ground to Santana, who had the ball kick out of his glove. That's to left. And Arcia over towards the gap. Makes the catch, out number 2. And that'll bring up Infante.
Yeah, that fastball got in on Perez a little bit. Couldn't get the barrel of the bat on it. Created that fly ball out.
Twins will see a lot of the Royals in the next week and a half. The series here in Minnesota, and then next week 3 games in Kansas City. The game Wednesday will be the first night game the Twins played this year. That is a foul ball, 1 strike. Infante 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts and a ground out. And of course, for the Twins, the worst scenario you could imagine is getting off to a slow start yourself and have somebody in your division red hot. And in the Twins case, it's worse than that because there are 2 teams off to a red hot start. Although the Tigers lost today, the only 2 unbeaten teams at the beginning of the day were both in Paul Molitor's division. A lot of the same issues so far for the Twins that have plagued them over the last 4 years. In the dirt, 1-2. Not 2-2.
Infante stayed out that pitch.
To the gap in left center, and Robinson will try to cut it off. He bobbles it momentarily. They're going to wave the runner around. Here is Dozier's. Well, he won't throw. He'll hang on to it. It'll be a double for Infante, and another run scored.
Well, with 2 outs, Dyson, the speedy Dyson, ran those bases around in about 5 seconds. He is so quick. So Infante, who is hitless into this at bat, picks up an RBI double.
Robinson juggled the ball, but I don't know that it really impacted Dyson being sent home or not.
Somehow he got some of my speed.
So that's what happened to it. He took it, and you never had it.
Oh.
Escobar with a couple of singles, a couple of runs batted in. Dozier with a diving catch to his left.
Never quit playing the game.
Another run for the Royals on a couple of hits in the ninth.
When Terry Ryan called me, we had a nice conversation on the phone, and he was talking about how this team is going to, win. They're going to shock some people. It reminded me of all those days when 2001, 2002, when everybody said we were the best AAA team in baseball, and we shocked the world by, winning, I think, 97 games or something like that in 2002. And that's what this team reminds me of. They have the fight. We saw the potential last year with the Tigers, and I definitely think this team is on an up and up, and they're ready to win some ball games.
Torrey admitted that it would be an emotional time when he was introduced here, backed out of the box, acknowledged a stirring ovation. That's been the highlight of the day, unfortunately, for the Twins. Hunter will lead things off against the only lefty in the Kansas City bullpen, Franklin Morales.
Yeah, Morales signed a minor league contract with the Royals. He's the only lefty in that bullpen, making his first appearance last year with the Colorado Rockies. 6 wins, 9 losses, 22 starts, and 38 appearances overall.
In the dirt, ball 1. It'll be Hunter, Vargas, and Plouffe. One of the things to consider as Kansas City's put its bullpen together, you've got Davis and Holland and Herrera, who are very good against left-handed batters, so that lessens the need to have some balance in your bullpen. When your right-handers can get left-handers out almost as well as they can get right-handers out. There's a tapper left side. Moustakas fires on the run, 1 down. And our Carsoup.com trivia question, I'm going to go with Victor Martinez.
I'll go with Torrey.
Okay. And it is Torrey Hunter. Again, not studying during the off season. It's amazing that we do as well as we do.
Yeah, we guessed very well. They had Tim Collins, and Tim Collins had the Tommy John surgery, another lefty. Kansas City's always had a tough time maintaining a lefty in that bullpen. They do have that Brandon Finnegan that I believe they sent him down to AA, but boy, he pitched well at the end of the season last year for the Royals out of their bullpen.
1-1 to Vargas. Twins had a 1-0 lead very early on. Vargas driving in a run with a single. He also got another single in the 4th inning, but when the Twins were threatening to maybe tie the game up, Vargas bounced into an inning-ending double play in the 6th. And then, okay, now Morales being reminded that he needs to wipe his fingers if he goes to his mouth on the mound. 1-1. Two and 1.
Morales, 29 years old, from Venezuela, came up with the Rockies back in 2007. Also spent time with the Red Sox. Went back to the Rockies last year.
Big pop-up foul over the Twins dugout. 2-2. The knee. Vargas is called out. Strikes 2 down.
93-mile-an-hour fastball in the perfect spot. So the bullpen continues to put up zeros and pick up strikeouts.
Perfect pitch down around the knees. 2 down on the 9th. That'll bring up Plouffe. They're down by 3 runs. Plouffe hit his first home run of the year to left to make it a 5-3 ball game. But almost as quickly, the Royals turned it over to their bullpen. The Twins turned it over to theirs. And the game kind of spun out of control. 1-0 to Plouffe. Missing inside, 2-0. To center field. He looked like he might have lost it for a while. He's found it. He gloves it, and the Royals continue their undefeated string to start the season 7-0. And they are the leaders early on in the American League Central. Tom Hanneman, the Royals outplayed the Twins in every facet of the game today and beat them handily.
Dick, what started as a perfect day for a home opener evolved into a royal rout by Kansas City. Up next on Twins Live, we'll break it down. That's next.